Welcome everyone to this webinar, Diversity, Equity and Inclusion, How Can We All Benefit? My name is Nina Marie Nicolas. I am the Global DE&I Lead at DNV, and I will be moderating today's webinar. And with me today, I have the pleasure of having Floriana Notarangelo. She is the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer at Barilla Group and also holds the Sales Area Manager for Southern Italy. In addition, we have Pascal Thor from the Heineken company. It's a pleasure to have you as well with us today. Chief Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Director for the Heineken Group. So it's going to be a pleasure to hear from these companies today. And Floriana is with us, but you may not be able to see her camera. So we will be sharing a little bit from the company perspectives and hear about the journeys that we've had in the different companies, as well as the learning and the outcomes. Now we will switch off our cameras and we will start with a short introduction and then hear from the different companies. We know that globally, diversity, equity, and inclusion is really a topic that continues to evolve, and it is further maturing in both Europe and Asia. We see more companies really stepping up their efforts, and local and regional legislation is expanding and pushing the threshold for what we companies must do to be compliant and to safeguard their reputation and image. But not only that, we also see a pull through the financial sector. And that is really because research is promoting correlations between diverse and inclusive organizations and bottom line results. Just recently, the Financial Times published their 4th ranking of European diversity leaders, stating, and I quote, "For employers, the absence of employee diversity should be a concern, not only to counter the strategic risk of groupthink or the legal risk of discrimination claims, but also to protect financial performance." In the past year, we've seen an even more turbulent world than we may have imagined a year ago. And specific events and situations in Europe, in the US, and in Asia brings the topic of human rights and DE&I higher up on the agenda, also from a societal perspective. At DNV, as in many other companies, employees care more about who they work for, wanting really to contribute to employers who address sustainability, human rights, and diverse and inclusive workplace for everyone. Because at the end of the day, it's really about them being able to see themselves as part of the future. So we see these statutory requirements, consumers and employees all driving this further up the corporate agenda. But maturity within companies varies largely. And based on a survey that was conducted by DNV earlier this year, 19% of responding companies are just starting their journey, while 33% are progressing, and then 7% self-identify as leading. We also saw that most companies identify internal drivers for their work on DE&I, with more than half responding that their work related to DE&I is about attracting and retaining talent. It's about improving their culture, company culture, and increasing employee satisfaction. And this is also mirrored when we looked at the results of how companies see the benefits of DE&I, because there is much lower recognition of the business outcomes, such as increased innovation, new business opportunities, and strengthened customer relationships. So in other words, we find companies at all different stages of the DE&I journey. looking to further really develop from where they are at. And with that, a little bit of background for the topic, I would like to now share a little bit about our approach at DNV. We quickly introduced ourselves at the beginning, and I'd just like to say a bit more about the topic of DE&I and what it means to me personally. I have a multicultural background with parents from France and Norway, and I worked and lived in Europe, Asia, and the US. And through my experiences of cultural differences and seeing the world for its good and its worse situations, I have also seen that it is a big impact that companies can make. And I truly believe that companies must be responsible and take action to support diverse and equitable both companies, organizations, and societies. DNV is an expert in assurance and risk assessment, and our strategy to 2025 outlines our core focus areas to deliver on our purpose to safeguard life, property, and environment, as well as our vision to be a trusted voice to tackle global transformations. DNV is a company of about 12,000 employees, employing more than 114 nationalities across 74 countries. And a large part of our workforce have a higher degree within science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But for DNV, diversity and inclusion is not about compliance. It is really about an ethical choice and a business decision, because we truly believe that it strengthens our people and our business and our customers. And it enabled us to deliver on this purpose and our vision. From the beginning, our leadership has clearly stated that their commitment to DE&I is really about making progress, about moving forward, and that it must be part of everything we do every day. Now, DNV has worked with diversity and gender balance for decades, but when DNV launched their new strategy to 2025, we also decided to look at DE&I again and broaden our definition, because we also know that it was really about more than diversity and gender balance. There was nothing more to it, and we wanted to discover that in collaboration with our colleagues. With operations across all continents, it was important to understand what our employees' perspectives and what they considered important when it comes to DE&I. And we therefore initiated a process to involve them, asking what does diversity mean to them? And what would they like to see us do to further improve? And while we found that inclusion is really a universal concept, something we all can relate to, because we have in some way or form been made to feel excluded or included during our life. On the other hand, we found that diversity means different things to different people, based on where they live and the barriers and disparities they face individually and collectively. So what you see in front of you is really that word cloud that we made based on all of the words that our employees associate with diversity. And interestingly, when we ran our survey earlier this year, we saw many of the same words coming back to us from people who had taken part in our survey. As with other similar topics, we know that in order to be successful, we need to have a structured approach. And we knew that we wanted to be thorough in our work, and we wanted it to be just the way we do business. We also looked for a framework, something that could support our work with D&I, also looking at our business from a global perspective. With DNV being a certification body, it was only natural to look for a standard on diversity and inclusion. So from this well-populated word cloud, to this simple definition on diversity, really embracing all those words in a simple and elegant way, and also a way that would be easily understood for everyone across our geographies and industries. And the ISO and the wording helps us also connect this to the workplace. Diversity includes factors that influence the identities and perspectives that people bring when they interact at work. And to the right, you see the iceberg model. It is not perfect in illustrating diversity, but it does really shed light on the many differences and similarities that we do not see, that exist below the surface. And unless we make an attempt to connect and get to know each other, we will remain as is, with our biases and judgments intact based on what we first see. So the outcome of our initiative, our efforts to involve our colleagues across DNV, a bottom-up and a top-down initiative, was DNV's DE&I ambition and key initiatives to realize it. And that is also why we put inclusion first, because it was really most important for us that our employees feel valued and have a sense of belonging, but also that they value the different identities, backgrounds, and experiences. And of course, providing fair access to opportunities for growth. And here we could also rely on the ISO and the framework. The ISO 30415 on D&I is not only well written with simple and clear definition, but it also addresses the key processes within HR and business, which are really relevant to look at from a D&I perspective. And it allows us to be systematic, starting from the top, and then using the methodology, and also ensuring periodically measurement of progress and performance. Basing our approach on a standard enables performance assessment also by a third party. And DNV is now preparing for the first gap analysis against the standard. In 2023, we will evaluate our processes or practices internally against the standard to really understand how we are progressing and what processes and practices we need to review and update to further improve. Now we know that a structured approach may take longer or require more effort, but it is really to unlock that potential employee diversity. Because we know that we need both that inclusive culture, but also our processes to be fair and to be unbiased. And it also helps us assess our risk and opportunities. We often say that DE&I is a journey for each of us, both at an individual level, but also at an organizational level. And we must start from where we're at. And DNV is really looking forward to the next year with this internal assessment, but also with other projects that are going to come and support our in our further continued journey. And with that, I'd like to close my part with sharing on from a DNV perspective. We have a lot to win from partnering, and that is also why it's going to be really exciting now to hear from Barilla and the Heineken company, so that we can learn also from each other, and our learnings and the outcomes that we have shared will also be for you to take with you and bring with you in your work. And then I'd like to give the word to Floriana. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Nina. Thank you for the introduction, and good morning, good afternoon to everyone. I'm very sorry I can't share my webcam right now, and you can't see me for a technological issue that I was not able to solve, but I'll try to, I'll make my best to take you through the journey, through the D&I journey we had at Barilla over the past 10 years. Next slides, please. So before we get into how we got where we are today, I'd like to take you through our journey. So first, a look back. We started the journey in 2012 with our lighthouse. Next slide, next click, please. With our lighthouse strategy that was implemented and defined and implemented by our CEO, Claudio Bolzani. Inside that lighthouse strategy, that was basically defining the path of Barilla for the next years, we had a section dedicated to diversity and inclusion. But the thing is, the journey definitely accelerated in September 2013 when we went through a reputational crisis, if you might remember. That reputational crisis really triggered our D&I journey and accelerated change inside our organization. This is when we decided to implement the Diversity and Inclusion Board, where we started to have a general impact on our employees across the organization through the Barilla Smart Working process that was implemented in 2014, 6 years before the global pandemic. We trained all our employees on feedback and on unconscious bias on diversity and inclusion. And just within a year, we got recognized as best place to work for LGBTQ+ people by Corporate Equality Index. So just in a year, from the reputational crisis to November 14, we implemented really a number of initiatives that paved the way of our journey. Next click, please. The second part of our journey was about engaging everyone. So through our ERGs, through initiatives with external partners, through initiatives with our suppliers, and we extended our diversity and inclusion journey to all historically marginalized groups. So not only LGBTQ+, but gender equality, people of color, people with disabilities, and so on and so forth. Next click, please. In 2021, we got recognized by Catalyst as the first Italian company and first privately owned company winner of the Catalyst Award, which was an amazing recognition after a 10-year journey. Next click, please. Now we are just to show you the different phases of our journey. The first one was really of paving the way, so making sure we have the right organization and the right people dedicated to D&I along across the organization. The second part was about engaging everyone, and now we are entering a season where we talk about business imperative, where we feel that we need to embed even more, every day more, the D&I into the business. Next slide, please. And our starting point when we started the journey, we always, this is our let's say North Pole, right? It's all about progression, not perfection. It's about making progress step by step at our own pace, and looking at what our role model doing outside the organization. So we really get pride in our progression, and across the years. Next slide, please. We've been recognized as most improved players by Huffington Post, first Italian company recognized by Catalyst Award. The Financial Times a couple of weeks ago published their ranking for diversity and inclusion, and we ranked third amongst FMCG companies, food companies, by the Financial Times. We scored 100% on Human Rights Corporate Equality Index, and we won an award for working with refugees for the 4th year in a row. So right now we are getting the recognitions and the reward of our 10 years work, but it started. Next slide, please. This is the moment where we were recognized by Catalyst as recognized for our work on gender equality and as a winner for diversity and inclusion. And this is the latest award we received. Next slide, please. So D&I, it's really an ecosystem of benefits. I've started by the end showing the rewards and the recognition we received, but the reason we're doing it is not for the awards or the recognition. We do it for a number of benefits, and it's an ecosystem. touching the high performance and making a competitive advantage for the company, touching the reputation of the company and the brand equity, and creating meaning for the person that are working for us. So attracting talents, retaining talents, it creates a meaningful work environment for everyone. We want to put our employees in the best possible conditions for excellence. So removing the barriers that are refraining people in investing their energy into their work. We want to make sure that the people behind the products people consume every day are people having a positive impact into the environment and the society. And D&I is also very much about the impact we want to have in the communities we operate. So you can see that this is an ecosystem of benefit that comes from the individual high performance to the impact the company has in the communities we operate. Next slide, please. So we divided our journey into 3 seasons. The first season was really about engaging top leaders and get the basics right. The second one was about engaging everyone, and the third one is really going deep into each location and each plant we have, for example, each office we have, in order to make further progress into embedding D&I into the business. But the first reason we got where we are today, next slide please, is that everything starts with leadership commitment. We would be nowhere near where we are today if it was not for the commitment and the dedication of the senior leadership of the company that really committed in front of everyone, in front of all the employees on the diversity and inclusion journey. And I'd like to have to spend some minutes on the year 2013, which was the first year for us as a D&I journey, and it was a turning point for Barilla Group. This is the year where we really set the fundamentals. Next click, please. In just 1 year, we appointed the very first Chief D&I Officer role reporting into the CEO. We created the Global D&I Board. Inside the Global D&I Board, we have the chairman of our company and the CEO. We appointed external advisors because we realized that we needed help from outside to guide us through the journey and to understand what kind of action plans we needed to implement in order to improve the inclusion of diversities inside the organization. We audited all our HR policies in order to understand whether they were inclusive or not of diversities. And we started getting out there to our employees. We ran the very first global D&I survey in 2014, asking all our employees their feedback about the diversity and inclusion policies and the diversity and inclusion culture of the company. We defined the very first global D&I metrics, so KPIs, targets on diversities. Next click, please. And we started training everyone on diversity and inclusion. We started also encouraging employees to get involved into ERGs, employee resource groups, in order to give visibility to underrepresented groups. Next slide, please. In just 1 year, we totally turned around the culture of the company. And one of our learning is that if you go through a crisis, use it to accelerate change. Next slide, please. This is a snapshot, a one-pager of our global D&I priorities from 2022 to 2025. We're in season 3 right now. Our 4 priorities are staying ahead of the curve on gender equality, be a role model on gender equality. We have made great progresses on gender equality, but we are always looking at what is the next objective in gender equality. Do we have a balanced female representations in all leadership positions inside the company? The second priority is always working on representation and sense of belonging of historically marginalized groups, underrepresented groups. What we mean by underrepresented groups are the people coming from diverse groups that are not represented in decision-making positions. So making sure they have a voice in the conversation, making sure they have a seat around the table. We will focus our efforts by location. So we went wide in season 2, training everyone. Now we really go location by location in order to make further progress. And we always look for new and emerging D&I challenges. We went through a pandemic. It triggered a number of issues during COVID: mental health, inclusion, be able to reinforce inclusion while working remotely, and so on and so forth. So we look at these four priorities. Next slide, please. And these are, of course, the consequences are a number of different action plans that we are implementing. So, for example, for the representation and belonging of historically marginalized groups, one of our global priorities right now is the global roadmap for disabilities inclusion. So we are focusing our efforts on disabilities inclusion from now on for the next 3 years. Next slide, please. The first thing we learned is representation matters, and while we want to progress on D&I, we won't be able to do it if we do not have diversities, people coming from diversities inside the organization and around the table in order to participate to the conversation. In order to do that, you need to get help. Next slide, please. You need to get help because you're not expert in every topic of D&I. So you need to rely on external partners that are experts in specific topics, and that they will help you and guide you in what you need to do in order to improve the inclusion of people, diversities inside the organization. Next slide, please. The second thing we learned is that you need to be intentional. You need to be intentional about what you want to achieve. It's very easy in D&I to make some statements and not walking the talk. Being intentional means, next slide, please. It means setting targets, setting yearly targets and monitoring those targets in order to monitor your progression and make sure that you are progressing throughout the years. These targets are monitored through a number of tools. We have the Global D&I Survey that gives us a number of metrics. Next slide, please. Being intentional also means challenging your own bias, understanding that you are not the expert of everything and that you also have bias. So challenge your own bias, be accountable, measure and report internally and externally, because that means that you are able to commit internally and externally on your targets. Next slide, please. Being intentional also means getting to everyone inside the organization. So we have run the Global D&I Survey for the as a 5th edition, where we go through 60 questions, 20 main topics about D&I. So it's not an HR survey, it's really a D&I survey where we monitor discriminations, for example, inside the company, or we monitor the advancement of women inside the company. And we collect that feedback and we use that feedback to define our action plans for the next 2 years. Next slide, please. Being intentional also means legitimate and support underrepresented groups. We do that through our ERGs. ERGs are employee resource groups. They are led by volunteers inside the company, and we touch a number of underrepresented groups across the organization, across the territories. We legitimate from the CEO to every level of the organization. We legitimate and support these ERGs. We empower all employees to challenge the organization on D&I, and we recognize and reward people that are our employees that are involved in our ERGs every day. Next slide, please. And I'm concluding with an invitation, because of course it's a company effort and it's a collective effort, but individually, every one of us can do something to make a culture. To make the culture a more inclusive culture of everyone. What you can do is you can put on your inclusion glasses. What I call inclusion glasses are glasses where you can, on one hand, own your impact. Next click, please. Own your impact means representation matters. Make sure that you have diversity represented around the table when you start talking about diversity and inclusion. Make sure the share of voice, make sure the voice is shared across diversities, and make sure your language and your behavior is inclusive. On the other hand, you can challenge your network. You probably do corporate events. You probably deal with suppliers. You probably design policies, processes, products, services. Challenge your network in order to improve inclusion on these topics. This is an invitation. It was a very a great pleasure to share the Barilla D&I journey with you, and I'm available for any question you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Floriana. That was truly inspiring to listen to your journey and the learnings. And I'm sure we'll have some questions for you afterwards as well. And with that, I'd like to give the word to Pascal Thor, your Global Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Director for the Heineken company.
Thank you so much, Nina. Few words about me. So I'm an engineer by education, and I dedicated the first 20 years of my career to innovation and strategy. And as I was working in strategy, I got aware of this analysis that you mentioned, Nina, establishing a strong correlation between more diverse and inclusive company and a better bottom line results for these companies. And you know, under an engineering perspective, 20 years of the same correlation issued by universities, private companies, consultants, consulting firms, establishing the same correlation between more diverse and inclusive companies and better bottom results for these companies. This is not a correlation anymore. This is an empirical evidence. So I became aware of this empirical evidence between more inclusive and diverse companies and a better way of surviving to crisis, of fostering innovation, of better financial results, as you mentioned, Nina. And I became passionate by the topic of innovation and innovation in inclusion. And this is why I joined Alcatel-Lucent as the first DI director, then Nokia, then Heineken. So I'm going to cut off my camera and drive you through the Heineken diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy. I'm very happy to share with you all this inclusion journey. If we go to next slide, a few words about Heineken. So we are a global brewer and we are diverse in many ways. We are operating in more than 190 markets. We are present in more than 80 countries. We have more than 80,000 colleagues, and we have a portfolio of more than 300 brands of beers, ciders, and soft drinks. And we are on a path to an inclusive, fair, and equitable world. So next slide, please. So in 2021, we co-created with many colleagues our new purpose, values, behaviors to deliver on our evergreen strategy. And in a world that is more divided, at Heineken, we believe in true togetherness. It's our raison d'être to brew the joy of true togetherness to inspire a better world. And this is the reason we exist as a company. And that purpose shapes our strategy and inspires our people. And as you can see, diversity, equity, and inclusion is strongly embedded in our purpose, as we believe that embracing inclusion and diversity sparks joy and fosters a sense of true togetherness. So next slide, please. So the definition of inclusion can be very unique to every company, as it shapes your journey between the point where you are today, your DI culture today, to your DI culture tomorrow, the culture you want to foster for today and tomorrow. And to shape our own definition for inclusion, when I arrived in Heineken 4 years ago, I conducted a research with my colleagues, listening to my colleagues about what inclusion means to them, asking them how inclusive we were and how we could be even more inclusive to each of them. And to make sense of that research, we use the Maslow pyramid, which is a framework which gathers all the needs for humans to be engaged and motivated. So let's look at this Maslow pyramid one layer at a time. The bottom layer is about physiological needs. To be engaged, to be motivated, to go the extra mile, we need our physiological needs to be met. The need for air, for water, for food, for shelter, for clothing. If we are starving, we are not in the best place to be fully engaged in the workplace. The second layer is about safety needs. We need security, we need health, we need employment. The third layer is about love and belonging. We are social animals. You know, human beings are social animals. So we need connection, we need friends, we need family, we need to be surrounded with and by people. The fourth layer is about self-esteem. We all need to be respected, to be valued, to be recognized. And the last layer is about self-actualization. It's about being able to grow, to learn, and to reach our full potential. And because we are so diverse, our definition for inclusion at Heineken spreads across all the layers of the Maslow pyramid, from the physiological needs to have bathrooms for all genders in our breweries, to the self-actualization needs for colleagues to have fair and equal opportunities to develop their full potential. So next slide, please. As we were reflecting about inclusion and what inclusion means for us at Heineken, we also reflected and adopted 6 beliefs which are framing the inclusive culture we want to continue fostering. So we believe, and we will discover them one by one as I speak, we believe that embracing and celebrating diversity enriches our lives and strengthens our business. And we believe that diverse and inclusive teams ignite diversity of thought, greater innovation, and better performance. So we see, I'm speaking about the business case and the correlation that Nina mentioned earlier in that webinar through these 2 beliefs. Next belief, we believe that inclusion starts with courageous leadership and that we all have a role to play to foster inclusion. I think that was very clear in Floriana's presentation. We all can grow our inclusion muscles or put our inclusion glasses on. We believe in respect for all. We believe in fair and equal opportunities for all. That would be our 5th belief. And our last but not least belief is we believe that inclusion is a journey. That was very clear in Floriana's presentation as well. We believe that this journey is joyous, sometimes bumpy. And through that journey, we all grow by opening our hearts and our minds to foster a sense of true togetherness. So let's go to our strategy. Next slide. Once we had clarity in Heineken on what inclusion meant for us, on our belief, we have shaped a strategy which supports us in acting as a catalyst for positive change. And you can unfold all the 3 pillars of that strategy. And we followed, as you can see, for that strategy, the insight developed by the World Economic Forum, which says that DEI strategies need to be systemic in nature, and they need to address leaders, which is our 1st pillar, needs to address our colleagues, consumers, and partners, our 2nd pillar, and need to address our ways of working. This will be our 3rd pillar. So next slide, please. So the picture of success for this DEI strategy contributes to our ambition to brew a better world and includes both leading and lagging ambitions. Our lagging ambitions are on representation because representation matters. We already heard that from Floriana. This is also a strong belief in Heineken. Representation matters, and we want to unlock the full potential of our people and to fully embrace our gender and cultural diversity in leadership. We complement this lagging ambition by leading ambition. Ambitions leading to actions. such as having conversations for all our people managers on concrete behaviors and initiatives they can adopt to foster inclusion in their teams. So every one of our people managers will be trained on inclusive leadership by 2023, and this means more than 10,000 people. And we also have a leading ambition to commit to equal pay for equal work by 2023. So this is our strategy. This is our picture of success for this strategy. What about our initiative? A few examples in the next slide. Initiatives are important, are really key to drive inclusion, diversity and equity forward, because diversity is about facts. That was very clear in Nina's presentation, and equity and inclusion are about actions. So we have activated a number of initiatives globally at Heineken about many diversity, equity, and inclusion topics. I'm going to share three of them. Three of this topic, three of these angles of diversity, equity, inclusion here in that slide: gender balance, cultural diversity, and inclusive leadership. Few examples on gender balance. We level the playing field for women in leadership development with a Women Interactive Network program, WIN, for 100 emerging leaders per year. We have employee resource group as well, the Togetherness employee resource group, to highlight women role models and their lives. We have designed a diversity, equity, and inclusion playbook to support our functions and countries to progress on diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have specific focus on women in sales, for example, in Brazil, in Vietnam, to attract, develop, and retain women in sales, but also in Brazil to attract women as forklift operators in our breweries. We champion a culture of belonging with events on cultural diversity to raise awareness on that very important topic, but also through employee resource groups such as Origins in Brazil to raise awareness on the need for anti-racism initiatives and to inform priority on that very matter. And we also conduct listening, dialogue sessions, but also discussions with our employees and communities to raise awareness on unconscious bias and learn to unjudge others through our partnership with Human Library. On inclusive leadership, we have designed 9 inclusive practices to help our people managers and colleagues to grow their inclusion muscles. We make sure that all our people managers are trained on inclusive leadership. As I already mentioned, we have listening and dialogue sessions all over the world. You see there an example about France and the many sessions they conducted throughout 2022. And we also activate discussions about LGBT plus inclusion and inform priorities about that very important topic through our employee resource group, Heineken Open and Proud, an acronym, the acronym being HOP. And as you know, HOP is one of the components of beers. So next slide, please. Let's go to our brands. And you may have noticed that our brands are doing their part to inspire a better world. At Heineken, we are well known as big marketeers. And with a big speaker comes a big responsibility. And we are working to make our commercials more inclusive and representative of the society. And for example, with Amstel, they issued a fantastic campaign named I Am What I Am in Brazil, and they're also helping people in gender transition to transition their legal identity documents. And with our Heineken brand, which is breaking stereotypes around gender, for example, with the campaign that you see in that slide, Men Drink Cocktails Too, but notably with a campaign about football, recognizing that 40% of football fans are women. We recently cheered them all. We cheered all our fans, men included. So it's next slide and you can launch the video. You need to click once more to launch the video.
When you walk through a storm, hold your head up high, and the sweet silver song of a lark, and
So cheers to all football fans, men included. So what did we learn in our journey of diversity, equity, and inclusion? So we learned that inclusion unlocks the power of diversity. You know, many companies have attracted many more people, more diverse people, casting a broader net at the time they were hiring talent. And after a few years, people are leaving because people, when they don't feel included in a company, they do leave. So inclusion is really the recipe to make diversity count and to help everyone to have the full opportunity of develop their talent in your company. Inclusive leadership is key. I think that Floriana was very clear on that as well. Leaders have a responsibility to develop themselves on that very sought after in leadership skill, which is inclusion. Inclusion happens through discussions where we engage the heads and the hearts of our colleagues and we have these discussions, and our colleagues start practicing inclusion and engaging their hands into specific initiatives and actions. It's important to define your priorities and picture of success when you frame a strategy on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and to make your initiative very concrete and tangible, and initiative that can be activated by all your colleagues. And yes, it's a journey. It's a journey where we all have a role to play. So thank you very much for your attention, and I will be very happy to answer your question when the time comes. Cheers to all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pascal, for sharing. And what a cool video you shared with all of us. I really love that. So I thought we would go and have a look at some of the questions that have come in through the chat. And Pascal, if you'd like to turn on your camera again, then we can answer those questions together. Now, the first question actually is for Barilla. Thanking for a really great presentation from Barilla, but also asking how large is really the Barilla organization, and in how many countries are you present? So Floriana, would you like to share a little bit more about the organization?
So we are approximately a 4 billion euro company. Half of our business is pasta, the other half is bakery products, so biscuits, breads, and so on and so forth. We're a little bit more than 8,000 people across the world. We operate in more than 100 countries. We have 30 manufacturing sites, more than 30 manufacturing sites between plants, mills, warehouses, and so on. And we have approximately 20 offices around the world.
Excellent, thank you. A big operation there. And then I have a question. Did you want to add something?
No, absolutely.
Okay, great. Then I have a question then for both of you, and I can ask you, Pascal, first. And so you've been on this journey now for quite some time, and we do see that DE&I is growing fast on many corporate agendas. And you gave us some really good advice there. But if we're really thinking about the very beginning to get started, what is your best advice? You would need to unmute, Pascal.
Indeed. That's a very important question. And I think the starting point is always awareness, building awareness. So I would start with conversation with your leaders, but also conversation with your colleagues to build your own awareness on what is important and what is the status of inclusion in your company, and how you need to frame your definition of inclusion to really help the way forward. And I would say you also probably need to look at your organization. Are you a very centralized organization, a very decentralized organization? How can you ensure that diversity, equity, and inclusion becomes a business priority in your organization and is cascaded everywhere? So in Heineken, for example, we are quite decentralized in nature. And we decided at the very beginning to have DI practitioners in every one of the countries in which we operate. So we have 110 DI practitioners that we name ambassadors that are upskilled by my team on a regular basis. They are meeting each other on a regular basis to share, learn, and reapply from each other, not to reinvent the wheel. They really built this strong community of practice. At the same time, they are cascading the global DI agenda in their countries and functions, and they are adding to that agenda whatever would make sense given their culture, given their countries, etc. It was really important for us to embrace our cultural diversity and to make sure that our global agenda would land everywhere through DI practitioners that have full understanding on the culture of their countries and what is important to stress in terms of inclusion, diversity, and equity there.
That's really great, and I'm almost taking notes here because I think it's really important to have that combination of competence and the regional and local understanding of that culture and context. Excellent. What about you, Floriana? I mean, you had a crisis that helped you sort of turn around, but it couldn't have been all that easy. Do you want to say anything more about, you know, your best advice also from having now long experience with this topic?
Absolutely. So, well, my first advice is don't wait for a crisis to start change. But if you go through a crisis, use it as an acceleration and as an accelerator for change, as we mentioned. Now, really, my first advice is it starts with leadership. Okay, so if you want to have a real impact throughout the organization and throughout the culture, having the chief D&I officer reporting into the CEO directly, okay? So it's not part of HR, it's not part of another process unit, it's really a unit, an independent unit that reports directly into the CEO, which has a tremendous impact on everyone inside the company, because you can drive your own agenda together with the CEO, together with the chairman of your company, together with an operating committee dedicated to D&I on top of their responsibilities, and you can drive your own agenda across the organization, right? So, so that really made a difference in Barilla. And this is the first thing we did in 2013. So it really starts with leadership. And the second advice, if I may, that I would give after 10 years of journey, and we are still working on it very, very hard, is look at what's happening outside, right? Look at role models. Everyone has made progress on a specific topic. So, for example, a company would have made progress on gender equality, someone else on disabilities inclusion, and so on. So, for example, right now that we are defining our global roadmap for disability inclusion, we are looking at what are the best doing right now in the markets, so that we can, we can model that and we can replicate what they're doing. And last but not least, and I think this is important in everything you do with D&I, don't think that it's only a matter of process and procedures. It's not only a matter of policies. So of course it's important, review your HR policies, review your internal policies, make sure that they're inclusive of everyone inside the company. But this can, this is a very short-term approach if you think about it, right? Policies and procedures. It has then to be interpreted and translated into action by inclusive leadership. So if you only have the policies, but you do not have the inclusive leadership, you don't have the inclusive skills, then you fall short. So it goes together. Review your policies and procedures and train your people, develop the inclusive skills, develop the inclusive leadership styles. And Pascal mentioned it in her presentation. It's absolutely key. Otherwise, you won't have a long-lasting change. You won't have a long-lasting impact into your culture. You will just have fixed your policies.
Thank you, and that is really a really good advice for all of us. I think it's very important as well. And I have a follow-up question for you as well, because we could see that you have a lot of partners in DE&I, and it's impressive to see that. And you know, any advice on how to go about finding and identifying, you know, the good and the right partners in a D&I setting?
Okay, I will start.
Yes, please, Floriana.
Okay. Now, regarding partners, the first thing we did, we used external advisors to the D&I board. So experts in D&I, sociologists, scientists, activists. Okay, so it might sound weird that we talked to activists, but actually they were instrumental in our journey, and they were a major tool, major resource for us, for our progress, because they push you into making some rationales that you are not used to do in a business context, right? So when you talk to activists, you realize there is a world out there, and they are bringing into the table topics and conversations that you were not having your eyes on or your focus on, right? So we started with external advisors, and these people helped us grow our network. So on gender equality, on LGBTQ+ inclusion, on people with disabilities, we rely on experts. So look out for experts, and they will help you grow your network.
Excellent, thank you. Pascal, anything from you as well on the final note here?
Yeah, partners are really important, because we are all in a journey to inspire a better world. So that journey cannot be limited to one company at a time. It has to cut across the full value chain. So partners are absolutely key. And at global and local level, we are very pragmatic. Is partner for what? Is it partner to raise awareness? Is it partner for co-creation? So there's plenty of examples and initiatives across Heineken of really co-creating a better world together across our value chain.
Excellent, Pascal. Thank you so much. And thank you both for taking the time and answering a little bit of additional questions from the chat. We are going to be closing this webinar now shortly. If you would like to reach out to any of us, Floriana, Pascal, myself, here are our contact information to connect via LinkedIn. Always curious and interested to learn more from other companies and connect on this topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And with that, I would like to thank you for attending the webinar. It's been a pleasure to hear the stories of Barilla and the Heineken company, truly inspiring, and lots of really good advice to take with us as we progress on our DE&I journey. And with that, I'd like to wish you all a lovely day, afternoon, and you will also be receiving the recording after this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina, and thank you all for your attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Pascal. Thank you very much. Thank you to all.
Thank you to all. Bye-bye.